Good morning. I hope everybody that listens is keeping well. This one is going to be about why uh, the old continent is being, um, you know, forced into religion once more, um, forced into the Abrahamic religions once more. And I'm going to choose my words carefully. Um, it is the will of the elites, it seems. Royalties and government, they are all for it. They want to go and take the other, Abrahamic faith from the Middle East. They want to take it and just spread it all over. The reason is because they realize that cult of the self, the narcissistic cult of the self, is the dead end, and it's going to cause the extinction of people eventually, the cult of the self, and they want to turn it around. You see, they gave the population too many choices related to family, related to procreation, related to what is the stupid word, reproductive rights. Yeah, that's the word. They gave too many reproductive rights, and if they don't do anything, there's going to be no one to rule. So like a farmer, takes care of his farm. They don't really care what the animals believe as long as there's animals. You see, these animals are the sustenance of the elite. So similar to previous dictators and warlords and whatnot, they are really fond of this religion, this other branch of the Abrahamics. They're really fond of it, and nowadays, the leaders of Europe decided, this is going to be the solution for this cult, disastrous cult of the self, and yeah, it will take decades, but eventually that's the plan. My question is, how are countries like from the Iberian Peninsula going to react to this? Because we still have very recent memory of occupation from the Arabs. We still have a very recent memory. How are we going to here in the Iberian Peninsula react to this? That is a question. So around the wanted to go deep into the cult of the self around the Industrial Revolution. The middle class started gaining power. Yeah, something that never happened before, and the elites was thinking to themselves, maybe we should give them power. How come? Therefore, we can sell them, you know, stuff. They can become consumers, and we will be even richer. And so they will be working in factories, producing stuff, and then buying that stuff. And we, meanwhile, get rich. So they agreed upon this, and this created the world that we have nowadays of consumerism, of capitalism and consumerism. Fine, and the middle class started, gaining power, and the elites was all in favor because they were getting filthy rich at the same time. All right, this was the golden age for the middle classes. A couple could have children. I don't know how many. A car. They could have a house. They could go on holidays, and with a salary, with the salary of the husband, it was enough to pay for everything. But then things started switching. The elites decided to, I want a bigger piece of the pie, you know. So they started unbalancing this situation and putting their interests abroad in where they could find labor that was a lot cheaper. So as this tendency started, yeah, they started migrating their interests abroad, The salary of the man was no longer enough to pay for stuff. The salary of the woman was also required, and whole movement of feminism and empowering women started, all as a response of this. All right. So during this time, there's these guys that people call them philosophers. They're not philosophers. They are actually extremely ignorant people. Kant, Hegel, Marx, and Freud. They came up with these ideas. No, they didn't came up with these ideas. They were actually, in my opinion, reading really bad translations that came from the East, that came from India. It was around this time that the first Pali translators from European descendants started translating the Gita, the Upanishads. They start translating Buddhism. They start translating Hinduism, and all of those mystery schools. But these was very bad translations. Yeah. um, and Europeans, started reading and coming up with ideas. People like Kant, Hegel, Marx, Freud, and the whole, there's more. What I was going to say, I can't remember now, but there's more. There's more, and they started reading these very faulty translations and coming up with their own theories. Yeah, for instance, Kant, the idea of active subjectivity is, we have we image space and time, in our minds, and participate actively in reality. And this gave, this gave origin to the ideas such as the reality could be a computer simulation, but this came after. But it originates in Kant. And active subjectivity, of course, this is a misunderstanding again of the Vedic cosmology. Hegel came up, or mistranslated or misunderstood Vedic as well, and he started talking about the Geist, the spirit or the mind, um, and this mind is material. It comes from the material world, and it's almost like a collective consciousness of people, but from the material world. Because these people, Kant, Hegel, Marx, and Freud, they were anti spirituality. This is the cult of humanism, and which is the opposite of Vedic cosmology. They interpret or misinterpret or cherry picked whatever they wanted to understand. So they focus only on the material. Yeah. Um, and then Marx came along and said, no, 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 no. The material world comes first, because Hegel said the spirit came first, or the mind came first. And the Marx said, no, 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 it's not the mind that comes first, is the world. Phrases like I exist, therefore I think, comes from this movement, or I am, therefore I think, or I think, therefore I am, or whatever. This is again a complete misunderstanding of Vedic cosmology. This is where they are getting their ideas. And then you have Freud. Freud, this one started, talking about the unconscious, which is again a misunderstanding of Vedic cosmology. He says that we are divided into three: is the superego, which is this facade, the facade that is presented to the public. Then there's the ego, who we really are. And then there's the id, which is the hidden sexual urges. He was very big into the sexual thing, because most of his patients was people allegedly who was, assaulted sexually. And he spent a lot of time with these people trying to understand why they were, you know, um, allergic to contact. And anyway, because they were traumatized because of, so these movements became, I mean, I remember, vaguely remember, talking about these in school. Become the backbone of Western civilization. Yeah. and these are focused on the material self, the material world, and they're very narcissistic. It's only you, and you are God. Yeah, you've become God, and there's only you who exists, and might as well enjoy your life in excess, enjoy your life in consumerism, enjoy your life. And this was the philosophy, projected by the media, governments, everywhere. At the same time, the elites was getting filthy rich, right? This movement lasted until now. Uh, Now the elites are willing to go back into the care of religion. You see, politics and religion are sides of the same coin. Um, let's just say politics that nowadays is more leaning into the left, yeah, and religion is leaning to the right. Absolutely, extreme left is what we've been experiencing with all of these um, emotions rule your life. That's extreme left. Everything is ruled by emotions, by estrogen. And there's your truth, and there's his truth, and the other has a truth as well. And it's based on your emotions and your state of emotions. That's the extreme left. The extreme right is you are ruled by a book, and you follow the book, and if you deviate, they unalive you, pretty much. And so they are sides of the same coin. And now from the left, we're going towards the right. It seems. You see, no matter what you give them, they always go for the extremes. There's no balance, no balance at all. Um, the cult of the self has destroyed families, so demographics is going down. And like any farmer, the elites, they want to bring back demographics because it is in numbers that they make their living. The elites, they don't care, again, what's your religion or whatever. They want people to pay taxes, to pay, rent, to work. They want people to gather the garbage. They want people to come up with food. The elites, they just manage. They are like the farmer. They just manage. The plan is then to switch from this world of consumerism, which was focused on the middle classes, to this far right movement that is focused on the elite. The more we go into the right, the more the rich get rich, you know, and ideas like technocracy or um, digital feudalism is coming. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's a renter, and you don't own anything. You rent everything. 15-minute cities. You don't need a car, etc. They are coming with this. Um, so, so I think I'm gonna shut up now. I hope I explained this in my funny way, how I understand this. Someone somewhere decided this was the way to go. They see they don't see a future in the cult of the ego anymore. By the way, the cult of the ego is the cult of the false self, which is the body, or everything that composes the false self, uh, which is the opposite of the Vedic cosmology. The Vedic cosmology is focused on the spiritual self, and it is in contemplating, eh, you know, this spiritual dimension that you see, there's a balance between both. You have to have a balance again, but these people go to the left or go to the right. They go into the extremes. there's a balance that you must, find that sweet spot between the spiritual and the physical. Ultimately, there's only the spiritual, but the spiritual is having a physical experience in this world. Some even say that everything that you are seeing is part of the spiritual, and I agree in a certain way, because everything comes from the same origin. Yeah, the spiritual wanted to experience the individual. It wanted to be individualized, and this is what we are experiencing. What is to be an individual? And again, there's still people who, don't like individuality. They don't like to be, responsible and accountable for what they say or what they do, or to make ends meet. They have this messianic, obsession over utopia, either on the left or on the right. It's the same thing. They have this that they want to be taken care of. They want free lunch. They want to play life in easy mode, and they willingly go into the extremes, try to find this utopia, which is where we're going. From the dystopia of consumerism, we're going to the dystopia of religious fanaticism once more. Yeah. Somewhere, between all of this bullshit is people who, quote unquote, are more pagan in the sense that they understand the energies of the universe and they try to live their lives. Just, uh, there's no way you can fight these forces. So I suppose the you see, it then depends on your character. You're not gonna live and let live. Sometimes you have to make a stand. Sometimes you can't turn the cheek. Sometimes you can't mind your own business. Sometimes you really have to say something. And anyway, all right. Tell me what you guys think. Have a nice day.